Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the High Vibration Living podcast with me, your host, Chef Whitney Aronoff, founder of Starseed Kitchen and High Vibration Foods. I'm so happy you are joining me for this very special episode where I'm going to be talking with you about your solar return, which is your most magnificent, highest manifestation day of the year. Now, this is something I've been studying for a long time. I first learned about this from Lavendar, who is the woman, the astrologer that created the term starseed. She was studying astrology, and during the early 80s, she noticed a pattern with every single person she gave a solar return or an astrology reading to. They all had the same markings in their natal charts. And that's when she learned and discovered that these people are all seeds from the stars, that they were all having the same soul origin, the same star markings, every single person she worked with over a 3-year period. And it was also during that time that she learned about a solar return and the power that you have, that we all have, with manifesting on our birthday. So when you think about the term solar return, there's 365 days in a year, and you have circled the earth or circled our atmosphere, our universe, what we know to be, and it's a return. It's a return to essentially where you just started. And then you do it all again for 365 days. So what we're going to talk about is what are your most powerful manifestation days in the year, a little bit more about what the solar return is, how do you take advantage of manifestation on your birthday, and then go forward with your life and make these dreams a reality. So I want to break down each section for you today. Again, most of this information is coming from my Starseed family, Lavendar, and that community that I have been studying with since about 2015, 2016. I then went on to learn from so many other practitioners who had very similar practices despite not knowing this community. So take what you can from this information, use what supports you, add what feels right to your tool belt, and if it doesn't serve you, then disregard, not a problem at all. But one thing that every spiritual teacher that I've worked with has reminded me is, it's happening whether or not you are taking advantage of it or not. So your birthday is a powerful manifestation window, whether you use it or not. So we're going to be discussing today something called your 10 hours of power. That is the manifestation window where you can take advantage of everything. And everything's amplified during that time, whether you take advantage of it or not. So whatever life you are living during those 10 hours will play out in your year ahead, whether you're conscious of it or not. So might as well plan a great vacation for your birthday. Might as well enjoy your day however you want to, because you're going to be magnifying that whether you're aware of it or not. Now, we're also going to dive into how do you find out those 10 hours of power? How do you find out when your manifestation window is happening? So we'll break it all down. So let's start with number 1. What are your most powerful manifestation days every year? So there's a lot of different belief systems around the planet, but overall, you can count on the start of the new year being a powerful manifestation day, January 1st. You can count on the Chinese New Year, that day, being a very powerful manifestation day. There are a lot of belief systems that the start of Aries season is a very powerful manifestation day. So just looking up on the calendar, the first day of Aries, because it can be different every year. That is a very powerful manifestation day. Then we have the summer solstice. Summer solstice is usually around June 21st, a very powerful manifestation year. And you can go back and listen to my episode with Shakti Sita, and we talk all about the power of manifesting on the first day of summer. So check that episode out. And then lastly, you got your solar return, your birthday. And so that could be any time in the year. It's different for everybody. My birthday is in May. That's why I wanted to do this solo episode with you guys, because this is top of mind for me. So you have those different manifestation windows. Now you know kind of how they play out on the calendar. It's almost like the way you look at your life, it's the way you should look at running a business. So business usually breaks down into 4 quarters. So we can break our lives down into those 4 seasons. And within those 4 seasons, you're going to take a look at the life that you're living. What do you like about your life right now? What do you want to change? And then analyze that and make intentions to make the shifts that will better create the life you want. So the same thing is happening on your birthday. You're taking a moment to look at your life, the day-to-day, the weekends, the vacation, the work, the good, the bad. What do you like? What do you want to change? And then let's assess how we can make those changes and what we can start adding in and what we can let go of so our life better reflects how we want to really be living. So that's how you should be taking advantage of your birthdays, making the intentions for shifting your year ahead into the way that you want it to be. Now, how do you find out when it's your solar return or your 10 hours of power? So let's say your birthday, you were born at 1 in the afternoon on April 30th. So your 10 hours of power aren't going to be 1 in the afternoon on April 30th every year. It's going to change because we have leap years. So that's when you want to work with an astrologer. It usually doesn't cost very much, anywhere from $8 to $25. You can usually get an astrologer to look up your solar return timing for the year ahead. If you guys want to learn more about that or find someone that I like working with, I use Miara Rose. And you can find some great episodes I've had with her here on the High Vibration Living podcast. I did a food and astrology podcast episode with her, and you can also look up a solar return episode that we did. But she's the astrologer that I recommend if you want your solar return timing for your birthday, if you want starseed confirmation. I highly suggest Miara Rose. Her website is Awakened Aspects, and I'll add that to the show notes for you guys. And she is who I reach out to get my solar return timing with every year. What I like to do is I also like to do a solar return reading with her every year. So I like for her to look at my charts and just give me a heads up on what's going to be going on in my charts, in my life in the year ahead. And I have to say, with 100% accuracy, she predicts months where it's going to be hard on me and months where life's going to be really easy. And I use that to not overbook myself with commitments in the months that deem going to be more challenging because of certain planetary alignments. And I have to say, she has been spot on every time. So you go into the month and, you just think work is work, life is life, but things come out of nowhere and blindside you. And it's really nice to have the heads up ahead of time. So she's given me my solar return timing. So that way I know that my 10 hours of power. So I know the actual most powerful hour for me to manifest, the 5 hours before, the 5 hours after. So for example, for me this year, my solar return timing starts in the afternoon and goes through the evening. So it starts for me about 2:30 p.m. It's peak around 7:30 and then closes off around midnight. So I will stay focused on learning and talking about and expressing my goals for the year up until the time I go to bed. I'll just make sure that I have a nice quiet evening to myself so that way all of my manifestational energy is focused on me and going into my intentions for the year. That's how I like to use it. But I want to tell you guys a little bit more about the solar return timing from my friends at Starseed Hotline and Lavendar in their words, because they're the people that really taught this practice to me. So I'm going to read some information that they've shared with me about your solar return and creating a solar return ceremony. I'll add in some of my information, but I'm going to read this off to you guys. I think it'll be helpful and more eloquently shared this way. And then I'll jump into some final things that you guys can consider for your manifestation day, your solar return timing. But simply put, your solar return is your true birthday. Knowing the exact time that you were born, so the day, the time, and the place is very important in order to get an accurate solar return timing for all your birthdays after that. So you want to know the city and state you were born, the exact time. So were you born at 1:30 p.m.? Were you born at 1:32 p.m.? You want that exact time. And this all helps in setting your solar return timing for all your birthdays after. Because there is a 10-hour window of enormous manifestational power available to you to use towards your own benefit and growth. So at the moment of your birth, as you drew your first breath, the silica in your body was imprinted with the frequency of the positions of the planets at the precise moment you were born. So just like radio crystals or silicon microchips, you become programmed to a specific frequency. Your silica naturally sets itself to the first planetary energies that it encounters in that precise moment and place when you were born. So it becomes your blueprint that you can carry for life. It's encoded in your body. You cannot change it. So the exact position of the sun when you were born is obviously your birthday. So I'm a Gemini, people are Leos, people are Cancers, but let's go back to the example of you were born on April 30th, 1980, 1:30 p.m. The sun was in Taurus at, 9:26 degrees. And, the placements were as they were at 1:30 in the afternoon when you were born. So each year when the sun returns to that exact same degree at 1:30 on April 30th, it is the peak moment of your solar return. But like I mentioned before, because we have leap years, the solar return can happen at a few hours different from your actual birthday and time. So you can have been born on April 30th, 1980 at 1:30, but some years your 10 hours of power are going to be the day before or a few hours after you were born or a few hours before you were born. And then it also depends on where you are on your birthday. So when you work with an astrologer and they ask for your information for your solar return timing, they're going to ask you where you're going to be on your birthday this year, because that will determine the time of your solar return. So if you're planning to travel to Italy for your birthday, that's fantastic, but you need to let the astrologer that you're working with know so they give you the exact timing for the place that you're going to be. And it's really important if you're planning a vacation to know that the energy of where you are is part of what you're locking in for your year ahead. So I've spent my birthdays in many places. I've spent them on the island of Ischia, which is the first and oldest spa in the world. It's a beautiful island with thermal waters off the coast of Naples. And then I've spent birthdays in Sedona's. I've spent birthdays in Palm Springs, in Laguna Beach, in Washington, D.C., in New York City, all over. And I, after doing this for so long, you can really look back at years past and see how what you were doing on your birthday and where you were really locked in the experience you had for the year. So just like hearing a train whistle approach from a distance, 5 hours to the peak of your birthday, the silica in your body starts to resonate to the note which was imprinted in you the day that you were born. So silica can be used to amplify thoughts. So as your internal silica starts to resonate and activate, your ability to transmit energy is increased 1,000%, which makes it a day and time that you can more easily manifest. The 5 hours approaching you you may feel things building up. You may feel like you have a lot that you want to share and get out. And then after those 5 hours, it will slowly start to recede. So the train whistle will start to quiet down. So the way everyone feels during their 10 hours of power is different. I think it's important to share because most people I know and I've talked to about their 10 hours of power, they really use the time to just enjoy the day or those 10 hours as they would want to. So some spend it with their family, some make it a spa day. I have found for me that I'm always really tired on my birthday. So no matter where I spend it, it's the one day a year I end up taking a nap. So for whatever reason, what my body and mind and soul needs on my solar return is sleep, and whatever is meant to manifest is being worked on while I'm passed out under a little beach umbrella somewhere. I haven't talked to anybody else that's happened to, but I usually cannot keep my eyes open on my birthday and I end up napping. I mean, it's even happened to me when I was in Sedona. I got up early, went to a beautiful mountain or mesa, wrote out all my intentions for the year, screamed them out loud, had my own little ceremony, came back down the hill to eat a late breakfast, and it was about 11 a.m. and I could not keep my eyes open. It was 11 a.m. And like clockwork, I went out to the pool at my hotel and just slept for a few hours. Couldn't keep my eyes open. And that tends to be what always happens to me on my birthday. So this year I'm going to do my usual thing. I'm going to go down to the beach, enjoy lunch and dinner on the beach, and plan to take some extra blankets or towels, because I know at some point I'm going to pass out and need to take a little nap. So if you guys have heard me talk about silica throughout this and the silica percolating in your body as you get closer to your 10 hours of power, to your true birthday. If you aren't someone that takes a silica supplement, this might be a great time around your birthday to start to increase your silica. Increasing your silica just helps your third eye, your antenna, your ability to just harness your natural psychic abilities that we all have. So everyone can benefit from consuming silica as a supplement. We all were born with silica in us. And silica really acts as our little antenna, and it gets really drained from our body by the technology that we're around. So that's part of why I consume it all the time. It's just a supplement that I take year round. I take a quartz crystalline based silica because the silica in our body is quartz crystalline based. So you'll see a lot of silicas out there at health food stores. They tend to be plant based. One of the plants that they use is horsetail, so not animal horsetail, but a plant called horsetail. You'll also see a brand called BioSil. Those aren't the ideal silica because, again, they aren't a quartz-based silica, and that's what you want. So The silica brand I use is, I'm going to have to look it up while I'm chatting with you guys here. Orgone. I use Orgone silica. I really like it. I've been taking it probably for over 5 years. It's liquid. I just shoot a little bit in my mouth. It tastes fantastic. I take it year round, and I've taken it year round for over 5 years. So I highly suggest. Let's see, but with that in mind, silica can be used to amplify your thoughts. So as you internally take more silica, it is going to allow you to resonate and activate and transmit energy much more strongly and beneficial for manifestation year round and on your birthday. So let's talk about creating a solar return ceremony. So it's your birthday, you have your 10 hours of power, you know the peak time, the number one hour for manifestation, you know the time before, the time after, you know what you want to do on your birthday. You want to go to the spa, you want to go to the beach, you have to go to work, whatever it may be. I'll give you an example. So one year, my birthday fell on a day that I had to go to work. There was no way I could take the day off. If I took the day off, I didn't make money. I was a pastry chef at a restaurant, and taking the day off from work was going to cause me more stress than just sucking it up, going in, getting it done. So it was during my 10-hour power window that I was going to be at work. So I tried to tell myself, okay, we're going to go in, we're just going to have a great day at work, we're going to make it fun, we're going to play good music, we're going to be happy, we're just going to go with the flow. We can't control at this point that we're going to be there, so we're going to make the best of it. So what happens as I'm in the kitchen early in the morning at the restaurant, putting in all the muffins for the day to get baked? I start burning myself, like accidentally burning myself as I put stuff into the oven, put stuff on the stove. I kept burning myself that morning during my 10 hours of power. And what happened to me the rest of the year? I burned my hands constantly. Every week I was having another injury to my hands. That year, I also had a huge injury to my thumb with a mandolin, but it was a war on my hands that year. And I have to laugh because I really, I take responsibility for that because I kind of set that in motion during my 10 hours of power. So it's interesting if you start to journal on your birthday every year on how you spent the day, and then you look back a year later and see how that plays out in your year ahead. So this leads me to the solar return ceremony. Let me tell you a little bit about from Lavendar and what she suggests you do on your solar return, and then I'll add in some things that I've done throughout the years. But my number one suggestion is to just not overthink your 10 hours of power. It is what it is. And, use your time to the best of your ability that works for you and your life circumstances. So we all can't spend the day by ourselves in our dream location, 100% focusing on reading our list of wants and demands and dreams for 10 hours. That is one thing that has been told to me that I should do, but that's just not reality. So take advantage of that time the best you can. Let me share with you now some suggestions from my teachers. So it's best to know the peak time of your solar return a few days or more in advance, so you have a plan for maximizing your 10 hours. The most important thing to remember is that the energy or song of those hours will echo throughout your year. Avoid situations where you have to do things you don't like. Deal with argumentative or otherwise unsupportive people. If you have to be unpleasant in a situation, try to keep your energy detached from it. Don't say yes when you want to say no, and vice versa. During your 10 hours of power, your 10 hours of power ceremony, you want to make a list of all your birthday commands. And the important word here is commands. Anything from the material to the spiritual and beyond, make that list as long as you don't interfere with anyone's free will. So you can make 2 copies if possible. So write out by hand everything that you want and demand for your year ahead, and then write it again so you have an extra copy to burn and seal into ceremony. So you want to write out your wants, dreams, wishes, because the pen to paper, the handwritten note, has more power than a computer typed note. You want to pick a place that holds power or resonance to you. So if you can get outside, that's always encouraged. If you can't, then just find a place in your home that makes you happiest. It's nice to be outside in nature. It tends to be more beneficial, than being inside the home with old energy. So if you are home, open the windows, sage the house. Otherwise, get to the beach, get by some trees, get out in rocks, any place in nature that makes you happy and lifts you up. There is really no set way to approach your solar return ceremony, but you need to make it personal. So however, the element of honoring your blessings, your ancestors, nature, anything that's going to support you in feeling and being in an up spiral energy. So you can bring some crystals with you. You can have some crystals in your pocket. You can, bring anything that supports your manifestation that feels right for you. But we're going to go back to the first word I mentioned when we started this part of the conversation, and that's command. So what you want to do when you write it down, your goals, wishes, dreams, manifestations for the year, is you want to write them in a way that you're commanding them to happen. You are not wishing them to happen. You're not hoping them to happen. You're commanding that they happen now. So what you want to do is once you write them all down, you do want to be in a place where you can read them out loud with as much emphasis that feels right. You really want to put your voice and command behind it, read them out loud, demand it. It's always been suggested to me to read them 3 times. 3 is the magic number in this matrix, in this universe. So seal it by reading it 3 times, and then close it with a resounding amen. So it is, so be it, however you want to close it. So that's going to lock in the energy into the universe, so it can come back to you as commanded. That's what we're looking for. So if you can burn the paper that seals it into ceremony. If you can't burn it, you can bury it. I've done that before where I've just buried it in the yard, buried it in the sands of Sedona, then placed under a rock. Whatever works for you, that's just part of ceremony. I've even, when I've had to do it at home late at night, taken an old pot in the kitchen, gone out into the yard, burned it in the pot. You can make anything happen, I promise. So that action is just a form of ceremony. It is, I have to say, it is really nice when you make a double copy and then you find that copy 2, 3, 4 years later and you see what's come into your life, and you'll find that, I hope for you, everything that you put down happens as commanded within the year ahead. I have found that they tend to maybe trickle out over the next few years. But here is, hoping that this time around, it all happens for me in the year ahead, in the 365 days ahead. I will tell one last story before we wrap this up that I think will motivate you to take advantage of your 10 hours of power. So Lavendar, the astrologer who first told me about the the solar return timing, your 10 hours of power. She was the spiritual teacher for, now I just blanked on her name, for Shirley MacLaine. So she was Shirley MacLaine's personal spiritual practitioner and worked with her on manifesting tons of incredible things that happened to her during her amazing acting career, as well as her personal life. They traveled the world together on a ton of spiritual adventures. But there was one year where Shirley was like, you know what? I'm fed up. I've been working my ass off in Hollywood. I deserve an Oscar. I deserve to be in a Best Picture. And there was one other thing that she really wanted, that she felt like she had deserved, and it hadn't showed up yet. So during her 10 hours of power, she went out on a boulder on a rock that was in Lavendar's backyard. She spent the whole 10 hours by herself with a pen and a notepad, and she wrote down very clear that she was going to win the Oscar. She was going to be in a movie that was a Best Picture. There was one other thing that she wanted that year that I'm blanking on. And she spent 10 hours visualizing her winning the Oscar, visualizing being in a film that won Best Picture, visualizing all the things that she was ready to have happen for her. And she wrote them down, and she wrote it down over and over and over again on this notepad. She just kept repeating and reciting it for 10 hours, sitting out on this rock, on this boulder. Pretty incredible. Tons of dedication. And sure enough, the months that laid ahead, that was the year she won the Oscar. That is the year that she felt like she got the recognition that she had deserved for so long in Hollywood. So she's not the only one who has applied this time to make her dreams come true. But the most important thing was that during that time, she commanded that these things happen. She didn't want, wish, hoped, dream. She commanded it. So may this podcast episode encourage you to command everything you want in your life for the next 365 days. You deserve it. And if your birthday is 364 days away as you're listening to it, how wonderful. You have plenty of time to prepare. And if your birthday is tomorrow, you still have plenty of time to prepare because you have your 10 hours of power. You can sit down at any time and start writing down what you love about your life and what you're going to choose to up-level and command into it. So thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of the High Vibration Living Podcast. If you have any questions, you can always reach out on my website, starseedkitchen.com. And thank you guys so much for being a part of this community. I love you. And please leave any messages on Starseed Kitchen or by leaving a review on any topics that you guys would love for me to talk about. I'd be happy to bring that to you. Until then, have a wonderful birthday whenever and wherever it may be. Bye.